certification for our first interim budget. If you would like me to send you a copy of that, I'm happy to do so. On our consent calendar in a little while, we will be approving some really important items that I wanted to highlight. With respect to Arbinger that Mr. Rodriguez mentioned, we are making the shift from having Arbinger train us to then having them train our own staff, classified staff, certificated staff, and administrative staff to serve as trainers for future trainings. We also have completed 2 key projects, the field turf portion of the Santa Fe athletic fields and the entirety of the Whittier High School tennis court, no more change orders, and a great new adjacent parking lot with lots more spaces. We've also received a generous donation to be used for scholarships for students here at Sierra Vista High. And we're requesting approval of several important field trips, one of which is Cal High's Model UN program, which is looking to compete in Boston. Next, I want to share with you in your packet is the graduation dates for this year and the hope that you can review those before next meeting so that we can identify your preference. We look to have one of you preside over each graduation, and then we can have one additional board member if you are interested and able. I've also included our recent quarterly Williams report, and I'm happy to report no complaints filed. Now, I do want to shift with you to recent days. California High School has been placed on multiple lockdowns due to threats received here at our district or through our law enforcement partners. These actions occur, these lockdowns, out of an abundance of caution and in consultation and recommendation of our law enforcement partners, in this case, Los Angeles County Sheriffs. Although I cannot comment on an active investigation, I want to reassure everyone that student safety is absolutely our primary concern. In support of that effort, Whittier Union has a variety of methods implemented through our campuses that help ensure student safety. Limited entry to the campus staffed with security personnel, a school resource officer at each school that is funded by Whittier Union in partnership with Whittier Police Department and Los Angeles County Sheriffs. Communication software, this is new, communication software that immediately alerts all staff to a threat and how to proceed. Additional on-site counselors who provide mental health services and screen to identify students in crisis, and that could be a threat. Training for staff on potential threat indicators and specific strategies for building positive relationships with students. A continued commitment to building relationships with our students, and text-to-tip for students to share any concerns they hear or see in an anonymous way. Mrs. Jones and members of our district team are working with LA County Sheriffs to debrief the recent events and determine whether there are additional safety measures that we should consider and bring to you. Mrs. Jones will also be scheduling a stakeholder meeting with families to share our safety measures and hear all concerns that parents may have. So I just wanted to reassure our community that we do take this very seriously, and we have many safety measures in place. And then lastly, I want a reminder, Monday is Martin Luther King Day, so there will be no school. Our schools will be closed, and that does conclude my report.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez, did you need to have something else?
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Thank you.
All righty, so now we will go to the consent calendar. Are there any items anyone would like to pull?
Yes.
Ms. Conchola.
Madam President, I would like to pull 13.03, the contract for Wyndham Hotel, and 13.12, the field trip for the Serena Puente.
All right, those will be pulled. Can I get a motion to approve the rest of the consent calendar?
So moved.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve the consent calendar minus items 13.03 and minus item 13.12. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, without further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 3-0. With respect to items 13.03 and 13.12, given, Ms. Conchola, I understand that you will be, I'll call it recusing yourself.
Yes.
I'd like to move that we would move these 2 items to Saturday's special agenda. Somebody second that?
Yes, I'd like to second that
Okay.
motion.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm supposed to make a motion or not, but I'm throwing it out there. Okay. All right, so there's a motion made by myself, Ms. Rodriguez-Moisa, seconded by Mr. Lopez, to move items 13.03 and 13.12 to the Saturday, January 17, 2026 agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 3-0. All right, so now we get to the portion where we had moved items, and we will start with, I think our next item will be 1504. Discuss trustee area 5 provisional appointment process for upcoming special board meeting and consider process for approval. So let me provide the introduction to my fellow board members of why I asked this to be put on the agenda. Obviously, we went through this process when Ms. Conchola was appointed a couple of years ago. But what happened when she was appointed is the rules were kind of set in motion that morning. So everybody was learning for the first time what our process was. And we do have 7 candidates, and so what I had thought was, how about if we set the framework tonight for what the process is, and then we can have Dr. Oviedo communicate with the candidates about what the process will be so they know what they're facing when they come in, and then we can get started very quickly on the substantive selection. But before I go into this process, Mr. Lopez, would you like to report out on our subcommittee meeting with respect to the certification of the candidates?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam President. We did meet, and I just want to preface the meeting that, or my comments, that we take this, this process very serious, and we must do our due diligence, and with the help of course, the staff, and we did ask for, residents where the candidates live. So we did review the applications and obviously where they lived. And with that, I want to turn it over to Madam President.
Thank you. And we did receive communication from the LA County Registrar Recorder's Office certifying that all 7 candidates are in fact registered voters, and that the addresses that were reflected in their applications are in fact in trustee area 5. So I think we've concluded that sort of legal requirement that we had to make sure we certified. And what I want to go to next is a little bit of our process. So I went back and I looked at the minutes from when we appointed or selected Ms. Conchola for appointment. And what we did at that point was, at the very beginning, we discussed that we were going to draw by lot the order in which the candidates were going to be interviewed. And we asked all the candidates, after the opening piece of the meeting, to go into the back conference room and voluntarily sequester themselves so that they would not have the benefit of hearing the questions and answers of the other candidates, but that once they were interviewed, they could remain in the audience. So I want to start with that first. Are we okay with those 2 pieces of the process, that we would, at the beginning of the meeting, have Dr. Oviedo draw by lot, so none of us knows who's in order, but not until that morning, and that we would advise the candidates that they will be required, as we begin the questioning, to be sequestered in our conference room?
Yes.
I absolutely thought that was very, it equalized the opportunity for people, and I'm telling you from the perspective as a former candidate, because you didn't have the advantage of hearing whatever responses were to the questions. And so I think in order to make it fair for everybody, that's the best process we can take.
And we will be considering in a second the request for a Zoom interview. For that candidate, they would just be placed in the waiting room or breakout room when the other candidates are being interviewed. So that's how I think we would handle that. All right, so we can certainly, I think we have consensus as to those first 2 pieces. Then the other thought we had before we get to some time limits is Mr. Lopez and I went through a number of questions, and did we bring copies of the bank of questions? Yes. And what we decided, what we discussed was proposing a bank of questions. And what we were passing out, and I can certainly make my copy available to members of the public. Thank you. If anybody from the public wants to look at those. We developed a list of 15 questions from which we call a bank of questions. And at the meeting on Saturday morning, when Dr. Castañeda Calleros is or reconvened, the other part of the beginning portion that the candidates will not be in is we would then decide how many of these questions we would ask. And the reason for developing this question is we want to give all the candidates the opportunity to know what the questions are. We're not hiding anything. We don't want any accusations that somebody secretly got a copy of the potential questions. And quite frankly, we want the candidates to put their best foot forward, knowing, and granted, we're not going to ask all 15 questions, but at least that they have an understanding of what the questions might be, and that this is what we will bind ourselves to in terms of the questions. So obviously, Mr. Lopez, you and I worked on these, and the process was, we took a look at the questions that were asked in the application, and then we deleted those that had been duplicative. We looked at a whole bunch of them, and within themselves they were duplicative. And then we ended up with these 15 questions. We did develop 3 new questions that had never been previously on any list. And that's numbers 13, 14, and 15. But maybe what I should do, again, because of limited copies, let me read the questions, Ms. Controller, because you have not had a chance to see this, and then you can give, I'm going to turn to you to give us feedback, whether you're okay with these or if there's any you'd like to add. Question 1, how would your appointment to the board complement the current makeup of the Board of Trustees? Question 2, describe your core values and how they shape your approach to trusteeship. Question 3, please describe your thought process when taking a position on a controversial issue. How do you determine the position you take, and what factors do you take into consideration? Question 4, do you perceive any current conflicts of interest related to your profession or other factors? If so, how would you approach your role as a board member in light of these? If not, what steps would you take to address a future potential conflict should it arise? Question 5, as a trustee, what do you see as your primary purpose or primary role? How would you fulfill that role, both as an individual and as a member of the Board of Trustees? Question 6, describe a good board meeting. What are the objectives of a good board meeting? Question 7, what will you do to become more effective as a board member? Question 8, what would you like to accomplish as a board member? Which of those accomplishments is your highest priority and why? Question 9, describe your response if a parent cornered you in the grocery store and asked for your support on a particularly hot issue. What if the issue was one you had not heard about yet, but that had been reported or discussed on social media? Question 10, what makes you the ideal candidate for parent empowerment and advocacy? Question 11, how does an effective governing board ensure opportunities for parents and community members to express their diverse range of views to inform board deliberations on important policy issues? Question 12, what funding services are being allocated to support students not meeting achievement goals? Question 13, what is your leadership style and how would you apply it to your service on the board? Question 14, if appointed, what are your plans for the November 2026 election? Question 15, what do you consider to be your biggest weakness in serving on a 5-member elected board? So, Ms. Conchola, those were the ones that Mr. Lopez and I had reached consensus on, and obviously there's only 2 of us, and it takes 3 of us to develop the bank of questions. So, I hate to put you on the spot, but first, just your reaction to those 15, and then obviously I want to ask you if there's any others that you'd like to add to the list.
I think they're really great questions in terms of really how a board functions. What I would like to offer is the thought of adding something, a question related to how do we keep focus on a collective goal and moving the board forward in spite of perhaps having differences of opinions and political perspectives.
All right, let me write this down. How do we keep focus on board goals? And keep saying it one more time in line
I
of.
don't remember what I said. No. In terms of, in spite of having differences of opinions and political perspectives.
In essence, how do you check your politics at the door?
Yeah, pretty much, and keep forward with our board goals.
All right, so I'm going to phrase the question, and we came up with 15. It does not mean we can't have 16, so I think that as long as the 3 of us would agree, but I'm just going to phrase the question so
Right.
we're ready on the floor. Question, how do you as a board, how would you keep the focus on board goals in spite of or in light of the differences of opinions and political perspectives of the other board members?
I'm good with that.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes, Madam President,
I'll write it to
in
you.
terms of logistics, we just handed out these to the public. Now, I'm just thinking, worst case scenario is that the added question is not, it was not given to, I see the question. But anyway, it's not added, so how do we address the issue?
So what I'm suggesting is we make a motion to accept the 15 questions and add question 16, as I'll read it. If we vote in favor of that, that will be the bank of questions, and that is what Dr. Oviedo will communicate to the candidates tomorrow as the bank of questions.
I'm gonna communicate with them on all of your actions related to this item tomorrow.
Thank you.
And also the questions will be
Oh, the questions are
available,
there.
posted on the board agenda. once
Oh,
it goes
yes, and
live.
they will also be posted on the board agenda, and our plan is to post the agenda by the end of tomorrow.
Thank you.
Oh, perfect,
With
yes.
your
Let me repeat that, so for those who could not hear. Once we post the agenda for the Saturday meeting, an attachment to that agenda will be the list of the bank of questions, so that everyone knows. Yes, the 16, if that's where we go. All right, so I have a motion from Ms. Conchola to accept the 15 questions, but to add question 16, quote, how would you keep the focus on board goals in spite of differences of opinions and political perspectives of other board members? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, just because that's a specific motion, let's vote on that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion passes 3-0. I didn't take a vote on the other ones because that was a consensus and it was kind of already written in. But the next thing we need to turn to is the agreement of the time period for opening remarks, closing statements, and the answering of the questions. I think, Dr. Oviedo, if you can confirm for me, last time we did 3 minutes of openings and we allowed 3 minutes for answering. And I don't think we gave a closing because one of our questions was, anything else you want to tell us?
That's correct.
Okay, so are we okay with, I'm going to propose that you consider 3 minutes for opening, up to 3 minutes to answer each question, and 2 minutes for closing. Mr. Lopez, what are your thoughts on that?
That's fine.
Sounds good, Ms. Conchola?
Yes.
All right, so there is consensus from the board that that will be the time frame. Now, we do have a request, as we heard during, obviously, it was already agendized, from one of the candidates to participate in the interview via Zoom. I'm going to ask for a motion on that, just no one can claim that it was just, as opposed to this other process. Do I have a motion to allow Ms.
Ms. Guerrero.
Oh, she had a full name, hold on.
Emily Sandoval Guerrero.
Thank you. To allow Ms. Emily Sandoval Guerrero to participate in the candidate interview on Saturday via Zoom. I do have a motion. Is that yes, Ms. Conchola?
Yes.
And Mr. Lopez,
Yes,
second?
yes, second with a follow-up.
Yes.
With
Okay, now that there's a
clarification.
second, please
Yes,
go
a
ahead.
second with, so, does this allow all members of the public to view? Okay, thank you.
We're setting it up as a webinar.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
No? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, none, so the motion carries 3-0. And then Dr. Oviedo, I think I've covered everything, but if you don't mind double checking that I covered it all.
The one bullet I see, agreement as to the time for a closing statement.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, thank you. Nice. Then that is all of the items that you have.
All right, and so we're going to have Dr. Oviedo communicate to each candidate individually or collectively, however she does it, with the bank of questions, the process, and then obviously we'll add the questions to the board agenda.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
Madam President, I know we motion to approve some of the items, but the ones that we haven't motioned and approved, the drawing of lots, and it's gonna be by Superintendent Oviedo, just one, and then, did we agree on the motion and second on the time for closing of each candidate?
Yes, I thought the motion was, the
Okay.
opening was 3 minutes. And
Oh, yeah, that's
was
right,
3 minutes.
you're right.
So let me just, you know what,
I just
just to
wanna
make
make
it
sure.
super
Yeah.
clear, may I have a motion from someone, one of my fellow trustees, that we move that the candidates, in fact, will be interviewed based on the drawing of the lot that will occur at the beginning of the meeting, and that Dr. Oviedo will be the person responsible for drawing the order.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can I have a motion that the candidates will be required to seclude themselves into the closed session conference room until they are interviewed, and that after the interview, they may remain in the audience and remain for deliberations?
Moved.
Second.
All right, thank you.
For discussion?
Yes.
Can we move on to that? Just a reminder that it is a public meeting, so you can ask them, but you cannot compel them to do that.
Oh, okay, all right.
So you-
So
I
a
would
friendly
hope they would all
amendment,
comply, but it's not legally required that they do.
friendly amendment to to the motion is that these candidates be requested to seclude themselves. That
Yes,
accepted? Okay.
that is accepted.
All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so that motion also carries 3-0. So, thank you so much. I really appreciate it because I think this will help the process on Saturday morning. And I think it's also fair so that all the candidates will be aware of what the process will be as they get ready for their interview on Saturday. Okay. Anything else on that item by anybody? Okay. So then let me go to 15.01, which is the approval of the annual audit and Measure AA financial and performance audit reports. We tried getting you on earlier, but we figured you had to kind of stick around for us.
Sorry about that. But Mr. Tamero, if you could introduce our auditor.
Excuse me. Thank you, Dr. Oviedo. But before our presentation on this item, I would be remiss if I did not recognize our Fiscal Services Department, especially Jimmy Escobar, Director of Fiscal Services, as well as the Senior Accountant, John Aguilar, along with the entire accounting department who work in, day out to ensure that our fiscal matters are managed appropriately and have yielded such a positive audit outcome time and time again. But to present that item today, we have from the auditing firm of Clifton Larson Allen, we have Mr. Taylor, Ulrich. Close enough?
Close enough, yeah.
Taylor Ulrich. He's a new face to us. For years, we were having Gemma Tasinski with us. So welcome, Taylor, and please proceed.
All right, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here to present. I'm actually presenting on behalf of Gemma Pazinski, who's currently enjoying retirement, so it's something for me to look forward to, as well as others. So I'm presenting her. She was the audit partner this last year, and I will be moving forward. I'll be responsible for the audit going forward. So we've completed the external audit for the 2024-25 fiscal year in a process that began last spring and was completed in December. And it takes several hundred hours throughout that course. And I'd just like to also point out that we work with we work a lot with the business services department, but we're also working with a lot of other departments and school sites. So it really is a collaborative, and a lot of people are involved, helping us get the many, many requests that we need in order to provide our opinions and provide the audit report to you. So with that, the auditor's report, that 119-page, I counted, document, our piece is actually 4 independent auditors' reports. And so I'm going to touch on those and how that relates to the district. So the first one is right at the beginning on pages 1 through 4 is the overall independent auditor's report. We were able to issue an unmodified opinion, which is what we call a clean opinion. It's the highest that you can get. And what it means is the financial statements that accompany it are in accordance with proper accounting principles and are materially stated. And so it's the highest opinion that we can give. Following that on page 20 through 29 are the actual financial statements. I'd like to just point out, starting on page 22 is where you'll see the fund statements, and these are what you're going to be more familiar with the unaudited actuals that you approved back in September. And then I'm going to jump all the way to page 91 because one of the schedules that we have is where we report if there's any differences between what you approved back in September with unaudited actuals and what's on these audit reports in front of you. And there was only one item, one difference, and it had to do with an accounting principle requirement change, and it was not any type of error or adjustment that we found. It's a common one we have every year. Otherwise, there were no audit adjustments or other reclassifications or anything to report. And then going from there, there's the final 3 independent auditors reports that we give. The next one is found on page 99. Starts on page 99. It's the independent auditor's report on internal controls over financial reporting and on compliance. So since you're a governmental agency, government auditing standards require us to review and give an opinion on whether we came across any material weaknesses in internal controls or material non-compliance. And I'm happy to report we were able to give clean opinions there. We did not find any issues in internal controls or on non-compliance. Page 101 is the next independent auditor's report, and that's on compliance for each major federal program and internal control over compliance. So because the district receives and spends so much on, or receives a certain amount above the threshold in federal funding, it requires what's triggered what we call a single audit that's performed, where we test major programs and give an opinion on whether they're materially in compliance and also look at internal controls there. And we're also happy to report that we gave a clean opinion there that the district was in compliance with the requirements that the federal government has us look at, as well as we did not have any internal control issues to report. And like I always like to say, then the next one is page 104, and that's the state of California. They want to get on in the game too. And so with all the very many programs that they operate, they want to have us take a look and make sure that the districts are in compliance with several programs. You can find that list on page 106. I think it's up to about 36 if I counted right, although not all apply to you. And so that's what that list kind of will say, whether it applies to you and whether we tested it or not, based on those requirements. And we were able to give, again, another clean opinion. We did not have any compliance issues to report or internal control issues to report on that. Page 109 is a nice summary of kind of what I just spoke about. It's actually required as part of the single audit, but it kind of gives a breakdown of our opinions and also shows what program we tested for that single audit. And then that's followed by the findings for the current year and prior year, which, as you notice, there are none. So a very clean audit, very good job by the district office that shows that their financial data and their compliance is being run properly and appropriately and very cleanly. So just to comment it there. So then moving on from that, we also were engaged to perform the Measure AA financial and performance audit. So as you know, because of the passage of Measure AA back in November of 2020, you're required to have an annual financial and performance audit. And so with that, the financial audit is going to be very similar, except this one we're only targeting where the funds of the Measure AA are being held, which is in the building fund. And so we give an independent auditor's report opinion on that, where we were able to say that the financial statements are materially stated and are in line with proper accounting principles for, again, that target the bond funds of the Measure AA. Those financial statements can be found on pages 4 and 5 of that report. And then we only have to do one other additional audit opinion there, and that's because it's, again, a governmental agency. We also have to look on whether the bond funds have any material non-compliance or material internal control weaknesses, and we were able to give clean opinions on that as well. And then with page 14 and 15, also we would disclose any findings or issues, and you can see there were none with that report as well. And then the last part of that second part is the performance audit. This is where we actually do the bulk of our work, I would say, is where we're actually looking at a high level of expenditures spent with the bond funds. And we actually we look at the invoices, the backup support, and go and trace it and compare that to what the voters actually approved to make sure that it is in line with what the citizens authorized with the bond measure. And we were able to give a clean opinion there that we did not have any issues of non-compliance with that, and everything was in line with what the voters approved. The rest of the report just kind of gives a little bit more detail. Again, also describes our objectives and the procedures that we performed in performing that performance audit. So that's the Measure AA, financial and performance audit. And then just lastly, I think you have attached as well the governance letter. This is our auditing standards require us to communicate certain matters with the audit, especially when there's issues such as disagreements, difficulties, consultations with other auditors, or audit adjustments. Those are the type of things we would have to report. This is our letter to report that, and I'm happy to say there were none of those issues. It's all pretty standard, and there were no concerns or issues that we needed to bring to your attention. So again, I'd like to thank the district for their help in providing all the, it's a lot of man hours on our end. I'm sure it's even more man hours for them to pull all the things that we request.
A lot of people hours.
So, but again, commend them for a great job and a very clean audit. And with that, any questions?
Any questions?
Well, thank you for such a positive report, and I'd like to see those blank pages. You know, that means that we're good. And again, my acknowledgement of Mr. DeMero's leadership and his team. I know that we're in good hands. Thank you for the report.
Mr. Lopez?
No comment. Thank you.
You know, I have a generalized question, and it's a little bit of a lawyerly question. The comments, the statements are, we did not, where is it? No significant difficulties, no significant unusual transactions. So does that mean there are insignificant, or that's just a phrase that?
That's just the phrase. We only have to report on those significant.
And how do you define significant? Like greater than like 6,000, greater than 2 million?
I don't have the exact stuff, and it's really, those are really more for, were there difficulties in us being able to accomplish the work that we needed. It's not necessarily a dollar threshold that was an issue. It's more like we requested this and they were refused to give us the backup support, or they made it really hard for us to get the documents, or they kept ignoring our phone calls. Those are the type of things that would that we would possibly.
I was partly, I mean, I send letters to auditors all the
Yes.
time because of the, and it defines for me what's a significant liability, et cetera, and different county services use a different standard. But I too want to commend Mr. Jamero and his team for outstanding work, for letting us be able to sleep at night, that our fiduciary obligations as board members are being held to the high standards, and because it would be something that I think in other districts would be keeping people up at night, that there wasn't somebody as strong and capable as you overseeing this. So thank you and your team. All right, Mr. Ulrich, thank you. Do I need a motion to approve? Okay, motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Ms. Conchola has moved approval of the audit report, and Mr. Lopez has seconded it. No further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? All right, motion carries 3-0. Okay, so now we go to the really fun subject matter of 14.01, review and discuss revisions to board policies 3000s and 7000s. And I understand, Mr. Jamero, you've got a presentation. And I will share that when I was at the CSEA conference in December, they did tell me that this is like one of the most important things we as a board do, is approve these board policies. But boy, it was a lot of work.
Thank you. Go to the board meetings, we often hear a lot of literary devices from Mr. Francis, whether they be similes or metaphors. And I'm not sure what literary device. I heard earlier about taking a village to really support students. Let me use the familiar metaphor. This was absolutely sausage making. This process is clunky. It is new to us. The efforts to do a global adoption of board policy utilizing CSEA sample language as the beginning point, utilizing multiple individuals representing the Business Services Division to come together collaboratively to review more than 100 board policies, administrative regulations, and exhibits, and then to pull that down into language that makes sense for Whittier Union and to bring them here. Talk about those man hours. It did take quite a bit of time, and so apologize for the clunkiness. We're getting better at this, and will as we go section to section as our process evolves. We're hoping to be more and more efficient as we continue this process. First, I wanted to start with talking a little bit about this process. We did begin with the CSBA sample policies and administrative regulations manual, somewhat different from, I think, the original section of board bylaws that included simply board policies. This section, the 3000s and the 7000s, include both sample policies in addition to administrative regulations sample language and exhibits used as samples and measurement tools. So we have many, many pages of policies to review. Our process included taking multiple days to review the sample language, go through that, and you will see in the packet, in the manual, notes. Again, this is part of that clunkiness to what we did. Notes that originally we started off as internal notes, not recognizing that when we got to this point, those notes would still exist on many of the pages. So I apologize if there's any awkward notes or confusing comments on there. It was really part of our internal process that we began with. So you may see, for example, language like keep CSBA, referencing that, yeah, we did not see any potential challenges with the suggested CSBA language, or keep with edits, or remove, right, or keep Whittier Union High School District. You might see all of these types of comments. In your board packet, in the agenda, the entire CSBA sample manual is included in the board's materials for reference material. We will work to cull that down in future adoptions to maybe streamline the process and make it a little more clear and avoid having to wade through unnecessary administrative regulations, exhibits, or policies that are not applicable to our district. All of the goal through that process of coming here tonight to make a recommendation on the adoption or the moving forward of board policies to second reading for next month with the edits and comments that we've made. Some of the considerations as part of that process, and again, this was a kind of flying the airplane, another analogy, as we built it. Developing the considerations as we sat and reviewed and bounced ideas not only off of members of the business services team, but we were here in different corners in this very room with members of the ed services team, next door, personnel services team, as well as Dr. Oviedo and members of the board at times were part of that process as well. So a lot of conversation as we developed what is it that we're looking for specifically, and the questions kind of that came out of each policies as they were reviewed led to these considerations. Questions about what policies were mandatory, what are they required, were they required policies, or are they optional suggested language that you can consider? We considered current practice. You know, what is it that we currently do? How does the suggested CSBA sample language compare to current practice or current policy that existed prior to the CSBA language review? Topics like liability, that recognizing that the more commitments we put on paper to specific prescriptive steps or requirements within the district may be a source of liability for us in the future if we do not, to the letter of the policy, address all shalls, right, all mandates by the policy. Additionally, consideration is the policy necessary? Does it address items that are common and useful that come up frequently or even at all in Whittier Union? And then lastly, are they applicable to our district as a high school district in the Whittier Union community? So these were some of the lenses in which our teams reviewed these policies, which led to what you have in your packet, a list of policies that we are requesting to move forward. Some adopted as recommended word for word from CSEA sample language, others with edits, and others that have been removed or suggested to not be moved forward to next month's second reading. So that's kind of my preface to this whole process. I'm going to return to my chair, where I have additional reference material regarding any and all of these policies that we're recommending forward, and be happy to answer any questions.
So I want to suggest a certain process for us as board members in terms of giving feedback, because it was a little clunky to review it, because it was unclear what in fact was being requested. So what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, and I'm going to take it in, we'll start with the 3000s. There's a few in the 3100 section, so there's 3100, there's 3110, and then I just want to do those two first, and then I'm going to go to the 3200, because there's a lot here. So if my colleagues have a question on, and if we have no questions, we move on. If we have questions, we'll stop. But that way, because the 3000s has a lot of policies.
Madam President,
Yes.
just for the point of, I guess, historical context here. In the past, we did, have an ad hoc look at these. Can we understand what did the ad hoc sees, or what happened?
So the ad hoc committee that we formed as a subcommittee of the board
Correct.
was geared towards the 9,000 policies, because those dealt with board of governance.
Thank you.
So the professional administration felt that because this fell within their expertise, that they would develop the policies to present to us for consideration. And I believe that's what's going to happen when we roll out the academic portions of the board policies. Dr. Oviedo, that's accurate, right? You all purposely did not include us in these because the sense was that this was the realm of
Yes.
the administrative team.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So actually, let me start with, I'm just going to take them sort of category by category. I think we can go pretty quickly on this. And I realize it starts with 3000. So we've got 3000. Any questions or comments on, oh, sorry, yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's, if any comments or questions on 3000.
President Rodriguez, would it be helpful if I, as we go through these, offer any, whether they were edited whatsoever or not?
I think the answer is no, because I think we've read them, and if we have questions about the differences, because I certainly read them as I felt comfortable. I have specific questions on a few. There'll be a couple where I will ask, are you recommending this or not? So for 3000, my sense is it's an introductory section on concepts and roles. I don't think we had any questions on that. Is that fair to say? Okay, do you have them, Sophia?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's now go to the 3100 sections, which is 3100 and 31, there's two of them here. 3100 and
3110.
3110. Any questions on those?
Madam President?
Yes.
I think this one, does it, is this connected to 9310, where, let me see this, the specific language, where, advisory, budget advisory committee, okay, the superintendent or designee may appoint a budget advisory committee composed of staff representatives and or so. I guess that's a question I have. And then another question is the staff asking us to pick an option here? Option one, option two, or just option one?
So let me have Mr. DeMiro answer that, because that's also my question.
Okay.
This proposed change deletes any role of any board member from the Budget Advisory Committee. And I think as a board, we'd like to know why we're excluded from that process, or why the recommendation is to exclude us from that process. And then if there's any feedback on how this would work in conjunction with Board Policy 9310.
Sure. Board Policy 3100,
Okay.
the efforts and the recommended edits to this policy was to revise the policy to meet current practice. Past practice and current practice with our current budget advisory committee was organized and offered and opened up to staff and organized by superintendent designee. So our recommendation is to select option one of the two, which would delegate the responsibility to the superintendent. The additional edit is historically we have separated the responsibilities of final budget approval from the recommendations of an advisory committee. So simply reflected edit to match past practice. And of course, I'll say this, these policies are the board's policies. So should the board suggest an additional edit, I'm happy to make those, take those recommendations, edit language, and bring back for second reading.
Mr. Lopez?
Thank you, and it's very clear now. I prefer to study this one a little bit further, where we take ourselves out of this. And I'm not too comfortable with it. There's got to be some kind of board member input. And yes, you're right, Mr. Jamero, I get it, that we ultimately approve certain policies, but if a board member has an opportunity to start the process and at the end, you know, the item is before us, they can vote. And the reason I say this is because they're the experts, right? If they're part of the committee, they get to understand it. And guess what? We have an opportunity to speak, or we can ask that member that was part of the committee, ask some questions, which is our colleague. So I like to maybe, I don't know how you want to phrase it, Madam President, but maybe, you know, study this item a little bit further.
I have a consideration in this too, but Ms. Conchola.
So I think I would feel comfortable with, now that you've given that feedback, Mr. Jamero, that you could come back with something that would include a board member as part of the process. Maybe not necessarily the entire process, because now we have the expertise, but before our final policy is implemented, that we do have some board input.
And my feedback is similar. I think one of the challenges, if you're not involved in the underlying collaboration of this Budget Advisory Committee, it feels like it's coming back to us as just either a rubber stamp, and or what happens if we don't understand it, or we don't agree with what everybody else has said or done as part of the Budget Advisory Committee, and then everyone feels like, well, their whole work was for naught because the board just kind of poo-pooed it. And I do think, whether it's one board member or two board members, because you can have two, I think that's my sense of it as well.
I may have a recommendation that can address that now. Maybe a suggestion that option one be utilized and reinstate board representatives in option one, which would then read the superintendent or designee may appoint a budget advisory committee composed of staff, board representatives, and/or members of the community to still delegate the authority and responsibility of convening and constituting the committee to the superintendent or designee, with the option to include board members as part of the committee itself, in compliance with the Brown Act, of course.
So we have the three of us here. Obviously, we don't have Dr. Castaneda Calleros, and we're about to get a new trustee. But I'm comfortable with the recommendation, but obviously we can add, the three of us can give that feedback, and there would be a second reading, but there's also, I think, the concern for more study. Do we have a sense of, do we want to go bring it back for another further reading, or do we want to have Mr. Jamero come back and just say, go ahead and reinstitute the board representative for board representatives?
I think a second reading.
Put it in the second reading? Okay.
Yeah,
So option one?
a second reading, Madam President, and I support that because if another trustee, Castellanos, wants to add something, we go back to
That's
obviously
true. That's
first
true.
reading. So if he, anyways, he has an opportunity to weigh in.
All right, so I think the direction, Mr. Jamero, is to go with option one for the second reading.
Thank you.
All right.
What was that?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go to, that's a long one. 3110, transfer of funds. Any comments on that?
Good.
Okay, no comment from the other. 30, let's go to the 3200s, 3220.1 lottery funds. Any questions on that one or feedback?
Give me a second. 3220?
3220.
Yeah.
Let's see, 3220.1 is the lottery fund. I had one quick question, I apologize. This, what's being proposed in this, because I got confused, this is in fact the CSBA model policy, correct?
It is with the minor adjustment, again delegating the establishment of funding priorities to the superintendent for this portion. Just a little background information on lottery funds. Lottery funds are restricted to be used only for instructional materials or an instructional purpose. There's really two different resources for lottery funds. So there's not a great deal of flexibility for the use of lottery funds. So it's, if you would sum it up, primarily for instructional purposes and instructional supplies.
So 3220.1 does modify this discretion, this authority from the board to the superintendent designee. I think I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Mr. Lopez?
No, I'm not okay with that, and the reason is because it does include committee members. The board encourages staff. It doesn't, it's not a mandate. It's not a mandate with this one. So when the stricken language, it says the board encourages staff. We just encourage. We're not mandating anything. We're just encouraged. Maybe the mandate is encouraged, but I don't think there's a harm there where we, dictate and tell the superintendent. We just encourage.
So you're commenting on the proposed deletion of that
Correct.
last paragraph?
Correct.
Mr. Jamero, any sense of what your thoughts are on how that would work?
Really just it was a revision to meet current practice and prior policy. So really to match that, no major pushback on reinstating that language.
Should we include something about, in terms of some of our board goals? Because I know that, one of the things that we're looking at is that multilingual learners, and some of those expenditures to be connected to some of our goals? Or is that too specific? I'm asking the question. Ms. Lloyd?
I'm the wrong person to ask that. I thought the question was being directed at Mr. Jamero.
Yeah.
So would it be possible to modify this proposal to say that the funding priorities and allocations will not only be in accordance with law, but also with board goals?
Yes.
In accordance with law and in alignment with board goals?
No.
That would be okay? I think we can give that direction so that it would be obviously consistent with law, but also board goals. Okay, 3230, federal grant funds. This one appears to be just basically a recommendation that we adopt the CSBA model language.
That's correct.
Any feedback? this one. I've got no issue with this one either.
Sorry, what?
3230.
3230.
It's a very long one. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm good.
Let's go to the next one, 3231, impact aid. This is a recommendation to not adopt, and it's also a regulation.
That's correct. This is administrative regulations included in the package, and you are correct that currently we found this one to be not applicable as the district does not receive impact aid, nor does it anticipate receiving impact aid in the future.
And I would say that we would then, for the second reading, not include this particular.
So do we just remove it, or do we say not applicable at this time?
It does not get adopted. It does not even become part of the packet.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, next one is 3250, transportation fees. So here was part of the confusion, Mr. Jamero. So I saw the board policy section, which is nice and clean, easy. And then, of course, I moved to the next part of it, and it's the regulation. And the regulation, let's see, is it 3250? But you're not asking us to approve the regulations.
That's correct.
Okay, so just the board policy. So that's 3250. I think that's, any issues?
3250.
No issue, okay. We'll skip that regulation that follows. Then we'll go to 3260, fees and charges. And again, this is consistent with CSBA model policy. Any questions on that one? All right, and then not bringing back the administrative regulation. Okay, so that one's fine. 3270, sale and disposal of books, equipment, and supplies. I don't think there's any question on the board policy. The regulation, just so I can get clarity, that gets approved how, Dr. Oviedo? Later on, you guys, as a cabinet, approve it?
For sale and disposal?
No, for any regulation generally.
We, as a cabinet, will approve it as long as it's in alignment with the board policy.
Okay, and then that never comes back to us.
It is not.
Okay. 3260, the regulation then we ignored, even though it was in here. 3280, policy sale or lease of district-owned real property. I don't think there's any questions on that one. And again, the regulation's not being proposed. Then it gets to 3290, gifts, grants, and bequests. So I did have a question on this policy. Towards the bottom, let me just make sure I'm looking at the policy, not the regulation. Yeah, look at the policy. You have in the online fundraising section that any person or entity who wishes to conduct an online fundraising campaign, including a crowdfunding campaign for the benefit of the district, a school, or a classroom, and then you've added, other than a donation to the school's associated student body, shall submit a written request, blah, 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 blah. Why are we excluding the ASB?
It's really revised to meet current practice. ASB funds, currently fundraisers at the school site done by ASB, clubs, groups, etc., are approved and governed by the site's student council. So ASBs vote to approve fundraisers and disbursement of ASB funds. They ratify and approve purchases, those sorts of things. So really, in our current practice, that responsibility has been delegated to site ASB councils.
Subject to the site administrative Like they couldn't purchase a Nazi symbol of some sort, right?
That's correct. Each one of them has a school advisor who sits in on all of those meetings, but really, student government is best.
That was my question, okay. We'll go- That sounds like that's fine. Let's go now to the 3,300s. 3,300 expenditures and purchases. And again, you're proposing the CSBA model policy. No comments?
Which one?
3,300?
Oh, 32.
Yeah, it's just expenditures and purchases. I think we're okay on that one. Then we're gonna get to 3,311, bids. Any questions on that one?
Do you have a question on the bids?
Yes.
On
Bless you.
the question I have is about pre-qualifications, Mr. Chamorro.
Bless you.
You know, isn't that, when someone gets a pre-qualification letter or maybe notification, I don't know what the method is, isn't that kind of a sort of like a promise, not a promise, but you know, a false hope maybe, if they don't get qualified and they don't accept, we don't accept their application.
Maybe try to clarify that a little bit here. One of the criteria for often bidding process, if you're going low bid, is lowest qualified bidder. So there is a pre-qualification process that's required. This language is the recommendation of CSPA word for word. If Mr. Rodriguez is here as well, who maybe can speak to it if I'm misunderstanding the question.
Yeah. Again, if I'm, for example, I'm pre-qualified, oh, this is great, this is great. Pre-qualified versus just qualified. You met step one, you're qualified to move on to step two versus a pre-qualification. That's, maybe I'm focused and, you know, on the semantics of the word pre. That's all. If we can, if it's possible to change it, if of course my colleagues agree.
Certainly we can change the language. It's pretty standard in the construction world is to have pre-qualifications to make sure that the folks who are bidding the projects have the proper qualifications, whether it be experience, funding, resources, prior to submitting a bid, so that they do not, to make sure that we're getting the next degree of bids that are out there. Without a pre-qualification process, it really can be any organization can bid on it.
That's all.
You just want to understand the
Yeah,
word.
understanding what the pre-qualification meaning is.
You know, I don't, so there is, for the world contract, or board policy require pre-qualification procedures, okay. Is your question answered?
No,
or-
well, I'm just, now
Yeah.
we can open it
Yeah.
up for discussion. I'm okay with the pre-qualification, I'm just, I feel that it's a false sense of hope when we say, oh, you're pre-qualified, right? Well,
Is it
wait a minute.
because I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But is it because like in the world of if you're getting pre-qualified for a loan, that means you're guaranteed the loan?
Somewhat,
As
yeah.
opposed to if you're a vendor and you're pre-qualified, it just means we didn't go through the bid process and find out after we awarded you the bid that you really weren't qualified to do that and we have to reject all and go back. I think that's a key difference between what it looks like in our financial world for us
Right.
as opposed to in the world of bidding.
And pre-qualification in construction means we're vetting prior to allowing them to give a bid. So we're making sure if there's any suspicious contractors, maybe they have a sketchy history, that we vet them out before they go low bid, because if they come in low bid, and we don't have a pre-qualification system, we're gonna take the low end.
Okay, now, I guess in the, like Mr. Rodriguez said, in the construction world, they know what pre-qualification. Thank you. Sure.
Thanks.
I had a substantive question, but not a question with respect to the change. Obviously, this does allow us to piggyback onto the contract of another public agency, which I do think is important. But just as a point of information, how often do we do piggybacks?
We've done a number of procurement methodologies. Piggyback, I think we saw a piggyback agreement last month. We've often piggybacked for the purchase of goods such as school equipment, furniture, that sort of thing. You will also see procurement via what we call CUPCA, which is small facilities projects. CMAS contracts, which are state approved contracts, so it's a form of piggybacking or cooperative purchasing. So when we can, the reality is it's more efficient for the district. It saves money, time for advertisement, time for fully vetting. If there has been a recent purchasing and full RFP process and the selection of qualified providers of a service or good, it is better for us to jump on those cooperative purchasing methodologies, including piggybacks, CUPCA, CMAS, other cooperative purchasing co-ops to really make it more efficient. We can receive the goods faster and for less expense.
And those come back to us, we'll see them in the consent calendar.
Every time, so all agreements, whether it's piggyback or it's a full RFP process, all agreements in the end come back to the board.
Let's go to 3311.1. And again, what's being proposed is the CSBA model policy. Seeing no questions. The regulation obviously will not come back for second reading. 3311.2, leaseback contracts. My question on this one, oh no, sorry, I'm looking at the regulation, I apologize.
3312.
I got all kinds of questions on the regulation.
Which one?
3311.2, that's a regulation.
What page is it? Oh,
64, 63, 64. Okay, next one is 3311.3, design build.
Also regulation there as well.
That one's also a regulation. Okay, so skip that one. Okay.
I think 3312 is your next.
Next, okay, there you go.
Contracts.
We'll give you our private feedback on the regulations. Okay, 3312, contracts. All right, so this one, you did propose deletion of the potential participation of parents, guardians, students, etc. For the non-nutritious foods or beverages. Just so we understand why.
Yeah, part of the context for this is something we're trying not to do. The contracting with outside agencies for the sale of non-nutritious food during the school day is something that we prefer not to do. We do not currently have a contract for food vendors during the day to provide alternate food than what's provided through our school, National School Lunch Program here in the district. So really, some of these edits were to remove some language regarding that. We're trying to deter non-nutritious foods and beverages. It's also, we try to keep that in the realm of nutrition services to ensure that all food items sold meet compliance with there's a lot of compliance related to food served on campus. So part of this, it was to eliminate some of the supplemental language that's included here and to match past policy and past practice. Let me check my notes for any additional. 3312. Really edit, streamline the process. Not currently applicable in my notes. No contract with food vendors throughout the day. Selection of option 2, which is further in the contract, requires, option 2 requires a public hearing for any new or renewed non-nutritious food contracts. Option 1 would require an annual public hearing, whether or not we had any new contracts, if we have old contracts, etc. But currently we have no non-nutritious food contracts for the provision to students.
And it looks like the language does remain, that should we ever want to do it, we just have to do it consistent with the public contract code and. Yes, Mr. Combs.
I'm sorry, I was able to identify the one other one, 3311.2, lease back contract.
Yes, so that is a regulation that we are not being asked to approve.
Okay.
We just
Okay.
got- So that one, we're only, so that was part of the confusion here, was that they included the regulations, but those are not subject to our approval. So anytime you see
Okay.
top regulation, that's not us.
Oh, regulation, okay, all right,
I know, because that kind of answered a lot of my
okay,
questions too.
okay, gotcha.
Okay,
you.
so I think we are okay then with your option 2, Mr. Jamero's, I think what I'm hearing, on the non-nutritious. And then that'll move us to 3312.2, educational travel program contracts. And then just to confirm in essence, you're saying don't adopt this policy, we're not going to get anywhere near these educational travel program contracts. We're making a board decision that we just don't even want to have a policy that anyone could interpret as somehow allowing them to do this.
That is correct. Our past practice has been to draw a clear line between school-sponsored and non-school sponsored travel. We do have, and I think really this is one where we talked about liability early on and trying to draw the line between, for example, popular tour group, EF Tours, would be a group that some school districts contract with. EF Tours can provide those tours in a non-school sponsored way. We didn't want to develop policy that would connect us to authorizing those types of trips.
We had one instance this last academic year, remember? So,
Yeah.
I stay away from that.
Okay, then, no further feedback. I think we're in agreement that that is not a fourth policy that should be presented for second reading. Policy 3314, payment for goods and services. Any questions on that? Looks like no questions, that can be brought back. Policy 3314.2, revolving funds. I like the streamlining of the language, I thought that was a good change.
So, the edits, the
Yeah.
edits are in green, Mr. Jamero, at the request of the board, county auditor, or county superintendent. Is that, why is it green?
That's an edit, that's an additional language added to the CSEA policy.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, it looks like you've got consensus on that one. 3320, claims and actions against the district. That's a policy. 3320,
It's a regulation.
No, it's
page 83.
page 83. The only changes there.
Agreed.
Oh,
Okay, looks like that's okay. Skip the regulation. Policy 3350, travel expenses. This is the one that also, this applies to employees, or does it also apply to the board?
It does apply to both.
So we should make note, I don't recall I've ever filled out any of those forms.
talked about it as part of the board bylaws, that we would look at you being able to do a report in a board meeting?
No, this is a travel request and verification of expense claims.
Yes, our employees do complete the report.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, this applies to the
Yes.
employees.
And there were some ads to reflect current forms as well as our current practice as it relates to some items that are not reimbursable.
Um,
Some additional language for employees because mileage is part of their salary, and so we have to add some language to it.
So here's my question. So mileage is part of their salary, which basically just means, right, because I read this a couple times, and I think I understood it. So for some, whatever you spend driving to, from work, or in between, you're already compensated for as part of your salary. For other folks, they basically get reimbursed for using their personal vehicle.
The distinction is all employees consider salary compensation for trips to and from work. During the workday, if you drive for work, with the exception of administrators and management level positions, all employees who drive for the purpose of work using their own vehicle are reimbursed the IRS reimbursement rate. Administrators do not qualify for that. Certificated administrators, I would say no. That's been part of language prior. It was part of considerations historically in the salaries of certificated administration.
And then just is there a typo on the green language for the per diem? Because it says effective 2016, do we need to update that?
We do have new language, and there's a note that I would recommend for this one. Following the original development of this still shows breakfast, lunch, and dinner at those dollar amounts. However, there is a caveat for the LA County area, an increased per diem at the IRS website, citing different dollar amounts, $22 for breakfast, $23 for lunch, and $36 for dinner as maximum, with not more than $81 per day as a food per diem. I would recommend that those languages be, or that language be edited to include effective 2026 with the new dollar amounts.
I think you have consensus from the board for that. Okay, awesome. Okay. We're almost there. Oh no, we're only about 30, sorry. 3,400. The change has to do with the initial acquisition cost of 10,000. That was pretty much it for the capital assets. And
Yeah, since the board policy was released and we began the edit, the threshold has been increased to $10,000 to count for initial purchase for a capital asset, and it really has to do the way we account for capital assets and their depreciation over time.
And then you struck out the process for anonymously reporting suspected instances of fraud, impropriety, or irregularity. Just curious as to why that was struck. It's the third from the bottom paragraph, page 92.
We just don't have a process. We do not have an anonymous process as of yet. It's really revised to meet current practice. So again, not wanting to commit to language, a process that has not yet been established.
Okay, and then what about the next cross out about reporting to us, reporting to the board on our district's internal control procedures?
Again, not past practice for us. Typically, as with our audit report earlier, we have an annual report by our auditors of their review of our internal processes. That has been kind of our process. We do not have a separate regular reporting on district's internal control procedures as part of our current practice.
Any other comments on that one? Okay, thank you. That can be proposed as edited. Let's now go to 3430, investing. Any comments? Nope, okay. Then, got the regulations. What are regulations? 3452, student activity funds. So this one, you did add a few things.
Yeah,
And this is the student body funds.
That's correct. The added language really is from current policy, the allowance of investment of ASB student funds in situations where more funding was generated than was expended in a year. It's an option to invest the student funds in the options provided under this suggested revision.
Okay. Now, maybe I'll make this go a little faster. But I'm happy to keep going one by one. If you've had a chance to look at them all, are there any that you have a question on, or what, you want me to keep going one by one?
No, I like, I mean, we can go faster.
Okay. We can go one by one, but I'm gonna go quickly, so unless you have a question, I'm just gonna say, policy 3460, financial reports and accountability. Questions? There's none, we'll go forward with that. So then we'll go to 3470, debt issuance and management. No comments, we can move forward with that. 3471, parcel taxes.
Adopting CSEA.
I'm sorry, when I say no comments, it's yes, adopting the CSBA model policy as proposed by the team. 3471, no comments, that can move forward. 3510, green school operations. Your question?
Energy
And water management, that's 35, okay, so 30, the previous was okay. 3511,
Yeah.
energy and water management.
is this just basically a water policy that? Okay. Stormwater management. Let me see. Does it cover water faucets on this?
I think that could be a part of it all. Part of it is to ensure, I think conceptually this is that we work on water management strategies, for example, low flow faucets, low flow water fountains,
Okay.
ensuring that we are conserving resources to the degree possible. I think conceptually that's what this captures.
Regularly inspects district facilities, monitors them.
So, okay, with the stormwater management, okay, the runoff, and I've mentioned this before, Mr. Chimero, Dr. Oviedo, on this, and, I've seen, in certain parts of the schools, that there's a runoff, and it does affect school learning, in my opinion, and of course, the quality of just walking from one place to another during, when it's raining. I just want to, how do we address something like that? Is it different than just this policy, but the runoff I guess that's the question I have for you all.
I think that would be part of our bond plans, and I
Right.
certainly
You know what I mean?
empathize with you when
Yeah.
it rains and I have to walk to my office and yeah.
I think that would fit more in kind of our facilities plans and development. We mentioned earlier today on our future long-range facility master plans that might be targeted as a particular priority in areas where we have some flooding during high water situations. I think for this policy, really, it's about how are we ensuring that our stormwater isn't polluted as it runs into the stormwater drains, right? So reducing pollutions to existing, pollutants to existing stormwater. There's a lot of regulation on stormwater for all of our facilities, specifically our transportation facility. We've made adjustments to that facility to ensure that our bus wash water doesn't run into our storm runoff water, right? And as per regulation, for all of our district facilities projects, our outside Our turf projects, our athletic facilities projects, that is a consideration in all the architectural designs, is ensuring that we have sufficient, I don't know what the right word is, Mr. Rodriguez, but that we ensure that we have enough ability to absorb water as it rains and not create more flooding situations. I don't know if you have a better explanation than that.
No, I just, honestly, Mr. Jamaro, if I may, Madam President, I just want to know that that issue is being addressed, whether it's through Measure AA dollars or, and I guess that's a follow-up question. And I'll be emailing Dr. Oviedo, you know, does this address the issue, this policy?
This particular policy, I'd say, does not.
Does not, okay. So I'll follow up with maybe the question, which policy does that? Thank you.
Okay, let's go to
Thank you, appreciate you.
3511 point, was waste management? No, the next one is the,
Integrated waste management,
it is integrated waste
3511.1.
management. Yes, thank you. So I had a question on this one. I think this is the one I had a question on. Oh no, I have a question on the next one. I'm okay with this. 3511.1. Seeing, hearing no comments. Exactly about that. Okay, well, these are regulations. 3513.3, tobacco-free schools. Yep, okay, electronic devices are in the tapes. Let's go, that one's fine. Let's go to the next one, 3513.4, drug and alcohol-free schools. You proposed deletion of number 3 of the alcoholic beverages unless approved by the superintendent or designee.
Recommended amendment to this edit to include alcoholic beverages, period,
Yes.
and remove our past practice with not approving alcohol for any specific events on campus.
Thank you so much. Because when I saw the deletion, I thought, oh, that means we can allow alcoholic beverages. Okay, I certainly am comfortable with that recommendation, that for subsection 3, we would just say alcoholic beverages, period. 3513.4.
I'm okay with that.
All right,
Thank you.
that seems correct on the board. 3514, environmental safety. No comments? Next one is 3514.1, hazardous substances.
I think it's just regulation, isn't it?
Well, this one is a policy,
Oh,
on page 457.
okay. Okay, I have something there.
You have it on the regulation, I know, so did I.
Yeah, give me a second. Oh, here we go. All right. Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask, the hazardous policy, and I have a question. Does this include water chemicals? Of course, hazardous water chemicals.
I think this policy, including things like hazardous chemicals stored in labs, to any cleaning chemicals, materials that are used and purchased by the district, maintained by the district, so any hazardous chemicals that are stored on campus. And our recommendation on this particular policy was to remove, again, more towards liability purposes. We do have these practices in place. But quite a bit of discussion. This is an optional policy, not required by law. So the question, and this is where we start getting into some of the kind of conceptual thought process here, is do we include a policy even though we have no objection to the content, but do we add additional new policy that's optional, that creates additional regulation to the district that we would be potentially required to do, although we do these things? That's been the discussion on this particular policy.
I'm inclined to keep this policy. I think one of our core values is the provision of safe and healthy school environments, even if it does create, I think, that potential. This policy also does require, and you probably already do this anyway, the development and implementation of a chemical hygiene plan. I think that's important for us to stay committed to, actually, as a board. So I think I'd be inclined to keep 3514.1. And thank you for bringing this up, Mr. Lopez, because I missed the removed part. I thought we were approving this one. But I've welcomed feedback from my fellow board members.
I'm agreeing with your comments, Madam President, definitely. I think, I think it's important for have legal counsel really look at this policy as well, to address maybe the potential issues that lie ahead. But I agree with Trustee Rodriguez-Mosa. She's on point. Our goal is to have a safe and healthy environment here, a learning environment.
I like your recommendation, Trustee Lopez, of having legal counsel
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah.
Maybe we can just, get the essence of this and write it down so it's not as particular, but we're still with the intention to keep a safe environment for students and for everybody on the campuses.
Okay, I think the consensus of the board is that for 3514.1, we would like to keep it in, but we would request that staff seek legal counsel's review to ensure that our commitment is there, but that does address the potential liability issue. Mr. Lopez.
Madam President, I'm just wondering, I really am passionate about this, about obviously hazardous chemicals in the water. I didn't get the sense that my questions was answered. If this includes water chemicals, so maybe it's addressed somewhere else, or maybe we can
Maybe-
address it somewhere else. Maybe in the
I don't think
future.
it is in anywhere else.
Right.
Just, can you clarify water chemicals like?
No, PFAS, for example.
You mean like lead?
Lead, or whatever it may be, right? That's all. I just want to be able to.
Do we test for that? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely, and especially I recall after COVID,
Yeah.
that after our faucets weren't running for quite some time, we had to ensure that they were. So yes, that is part of our practice.
Is the director clear on this one, Mr. Rivera?
Just to clarify, keep policy with review with council to ensure that if there's any suggestions from them, that maybe we incorporate that into the next draft.
Yes. All right, let's go to the next one.
Thank you.
All right. Policy 35. I promise folks who are listening, we're almost there. 3515, campus security. Hearing no comments, we'll proceed with the CSBA model policy. So then we'll go to 3515.2, disruptions. All right, hearing no comment, we will proceed with the CSBA model policy. 3515.21, unmanned aircraft systems, drones. This is great.
Yeah, I love it.
I
This
know.
is great.
So this is, it has a couple of obviously minor edits about where it will not be flown and what it was way, but any other feedback?
I do have
Please, Mr.
some
Lopez.
questions. Yeah, I do have a question. why 55 pounds in this, I guess, the max, right?
That's actually part of the regulation. If you look in paragraph 2, recommended by CSP, does identify 55 pounds. We thought it was important to put it back into the enumerated section, knowing that that's how people read policies, is they look for what are the rules. And so echoed the recognition of unmanned aircraft systems or drones. By definition, in paragraph 2, weighing less than 55 pounds is part of the regulation that's cited in the top. So we just restated that again. That policy was actually a part of a prior policy we had when we did offer a drones course in the district at some point, and I remember developing the policy to help guide that new program.
Do you have a comment on this? Mr. Chamorro, I mean, I've seen drones, you know, basically the technology has evolved. 55 pounds is pretty heavy, right? 20 pounds is pretty heavy. It drops when someone's had 20 pounds, you know. I like to, if my, you know, my colleagues agree, I like to study this one a little bit more because, again, the technology has evolved. What, 3 pounds, 5 pounds, you know, a very effective drone. And I don't know when we have the last, you know, for course that was approved. But again, for safety concerns, I like to see if we can lower that number, the threshold.
And I think that would be the consensus of the board. Mr. Chamorro, is that right, Ms. Controller?
Yes.
That's all.
If there could be some more research as to whether the weight limit can be lowered in light of the technological advances.
Or do we need to state a weight limit? You know, a drone is a drone. Do we have to get specific as that? I guess that's the question for Mr. Conrad.
Right, so use the regulation by law has to be less than 55 pounds to be flown in public legally. I understand why 55 pounds may be excessive.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't know that we have any drone operation that's anywhere close to 55 pounds. So appreciate the recommendation. We can explore reducing that number to something that's more in line with current practice.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The next one is 3515.3, District Police / Security Department. My understanding is to not adopt the CSEA model policy because we do not have a district police force, nor do we have a district security department as outlined in this policy. Is that fair?
That's fair.
All right, so further comment, we'll remove that one. Policy 3515.31, school resource officers. There's a note here, remove CSBA. I think on this one, you kind of want an explanation. Is it being removed, proposed for removal, or not?
Recommendation was removal. However, it is okay if the board wishes to leave this in. If we recall, there was quite a bit of discussion about developing a policy specifically by the Board of Trustees. So part of the recommendation to exclude it was we don't have one, again, just we don't have existing policy. It's not a required policy. And the board did express some interest in pursuing this as a board. So that's part of it. I would point out there is some inconsistency with the recommended language and current practice with school resource officers related to access to student records. Although as the school resource officers work as part of the school security teams, they work together with the administrative team, they often have access to student records. So should this be amended further, I would pay attention to that particular section. And we would need to do a little bit more homework and talk about what it is specifically, what access would we want school resource officers to have now. Which I think this is kind of an evolving conversation, I think, in recent years.
You know, what's interesting is the exception may swallow the rule, right? Or required by state or federal law may ultimately mean they have access to a lot more than we're saying they don't have access to. We just don't know. I would prefer that we include this policy. We do have an SRO program, or we do have school resource officers. Also, I don't recall receiving the memorandum of understandings between our sheriff's department and Whittier PD for us to approve, and this would require us approving the MOU. And so I think that's good practice too.
They are approved, but they come every 4 to 5 years under contracts.
So, okay, has it been the last?
So it's our next cycle.
Right when they're gonna increase their fees for us. So my sense is to include it. Do I have a sense from my fellow board members to include this one?
Yep.
Okay, I have a yes, so let's keep that one, Mr. Jamero.
Okay.
All right, next one, 3515.4, recovery for property loss or damage. I am glad you deleted the rewards. That always is a problem, as I've seen with other agencies. I'm okay with these changes.
Me too.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. As amended, proceed. Let's go to the next one, 3515.5, sex offender notification. There's a recommendation to not adopt this policy. I will start my commentary first. I will say that when I saw that the recommendation was to remove it, I have significant concerns because obviously, as trustees, we want to ensure that our students are not exposed to folks who, in fact, have been convicted of sex offenses that require them to basically for them to register with the local law enforcement. So I'd really like to understand the recommendation to exclude this particular policy.
This is one of concern, potential liability. Current practice, we do not receive notification from local law enforcement regarding that, nor do we have a current practice of soliciting that information from law enforcement or notification procedures in alignment with law. This would be a new responsibility taken on by the district to inform the community regarding an area of questionable responsibility, I guess, is it the responsibility of the school district to police the community? And that's conceptually the question. And if we assume that responsibility, are we prepared to assume the additional liability should we miss a notification?
It's fascinating that this is a model CSEA policy.
Yeah, but it's an optional policy. It's not one that's required or mandated by law. It's one that's a little scary for us.
Mr. Lopez.
Is there a way where kind of saves us legally, yet addresses the issue of the hard issue of notification and such? Just wondering.
Do we just provide resources like that website where you can look up your local sex offenders?
Yeah, exactly. See, something, yeah, we want to address it, but yeah, we don't want to be legally liable.
Yeah,
right?
so for me, the big liability is the second paragraph. Right, the first paragraph seems okay. In order to protect students while they're traveling to or from, the governing board believes it important that the district respond appropriately when a law enforcement agency notifies the district when we reside. It's that second one is the affirmative action that we're taking, right? That now we're going to develop a relationship, we're going to coordinate, we receive that second one is clearly, I understand the legal, that's not creating an additional duty. So yeah, this is a tough one. Do we want to hold off on this one? Get some further feedback, maybe from legal?
Please.
Okay, I think that we have a sense that this is my sense of it. We kind of want to make a statement that this is important to us. That we think it's important if we're notified that the community, if we're put on notice. But on the other hand, we absolutely share Mr. Jamero's concern that if we adopt this policy, are we somehow creating a standard of care or a duty of care that we're not gonna be able to fully satisfy, and therefore create legal exposure? So let's have legal counsel review this one with us and maybe come back on that one. So I get it.
The second half too is we don't have a district police and security department, so that would have to be struck. That's not applicable to
Which second one you
me.
referred
The
to?
under role of district police security department.
Oh, yeah, that would have to be stricken also, yeah. So, like, I only like the first paragraph.
Do we have a policy that has one there?
Oh, we can always create one. We'll create a second sentence somehow. But I think this one, very well taken. I think that we have an interest, but we recognize the potential for legal exposure if we could get an opinion from legal counsel. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, 3515, let's go to 30, we're almost there with the 30,000. Where we go? We're not gonna go through this when you put yours right.
I have an idea.
Okay, perfect.
I have an idea. I have
3515,
ideas.
3515.7 firearms on school grounds. I don't think there's any comments on that. That's good to go as proposed. 3516, emergencies and disaster preparedness plan. I think that my only request on this one is that the superintendent designee develop and maintain a disaster preparedness plan to be like presented to the board every year, even if it's on consent. I'm very curious about this because I am very worried we're gonna have a disaster, earthquake, whatever it might be, and I'd like to see what we do.
We do bring that to you in June.
Is it in June?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I'll have to take a better look at it.
It's a huge document that's very compliance driven.
How about an
Anytime
executive
the state-
summary?
I'm sure we can do that, an executive summary. But anytime the state
think it's a
adds
required,
a
right?
requirement, they add it into our student safety.
They are required, and you're required to be submitted by each particular.
And it's every year?
And for every school.
In June.
Okay, perfect. Okay, then that's, ignore me, my comments. And let's go to it's interesting having that contract regulation too.
It's not the same thing.
Okay, 3516.5, emergency schedules. Any comments? Are we good on that one? I think we're good with that one. That can move forward as proposed. And we've got the listed exhibits, right? 3523, electronic signatures. I think there's consensus, we'll proceed with that one. 3530, risk management. There's an edit there, I'm fine with the edit. Any other comments on that one? All right, good to go with the proposed edit. 3540, and the rest of these deal with transportation. Any comments on the transportation ones? I think all those in transportation are going to be fine without, as proposed. So that's 3540, 3541.2. Now we get to 3550, food service child nutrition programs. There's a proposed deletion in the CSBA model policy to delete the quote, at the beginning of each school year, the superintendent or designee shall communicate information related to the district's food service programs to the public through available means, including but not limited to the district's website, social media, flyers, and school publications. I take it we don't do that now?
We do that now. I think at the time that this was originally edited, we were between school service nutrition directors. So we could recommend reinstating that language.
Okay, great. All right, so with it being reinserted, I think that's approved for the second reading. All right, next we get to 3551, Food Service Operations Cafeteria Fund.
All schools are in the National School Lunch.
Perfect. And option 2 is great, okay, no comment, that can be moved forward as proposed. And we're getting there. 3552, Summer Meal Program. Kevin, this is one you propose removing.
That's correct. We can provide school service. There's a delineation between different summer feeding programs. This particular summer meal program refers to non-congregate off-campus serving food at non-school sites to non-students and members of the community as well. We have ventured into that at previous times. It's never been found to cover its own cost. So this would include bringing food meals to recreational programs at the park or at the library, and at time to time we've done that. It is not profitable or even financially solvent. I mean, we lose money in that. The man hours to feed 3 kids meals at the library is not worth it. Just because we don't have the policy wouldn't mean that we couldn't entertain a particular program in conjunction with the city or a recreational program. Part of the suggestion to remove was not necessarily encourage it. It's a financial liability.
I think the consensus of the board is to agree with your assessment that it should not be presented for second reading. Next one is 3553, food and reduced price meals. Hearing no comment, that'll be, should be proposed for second reading as proposed. 3554, other food sales. There's no comments, that can come back as proposed. And 3555, nutrition program compliance. Hearing no comments. Your proposed changes would go with option 1 is appropriate and should be brought back for the second reading. And then 3580, district records. Have seen no comments, then we should bring that back as proposed. 3600, consultants. Hearing no comments, that can be brought back as proposed.
Just to clarify, as we're almost there, when recommendation to bring back is proposed, are we bringing it back on consent or are we bringing it back to new business with second reading, or a combination of both, where those that were no comments bring back to consent for approval and bring back some of those that with edits for second reading? I'm just trying to consider the process a little bit here.
I would say bring them all back in new business, and gives everybody a chance to say, that'll be their last chance to say, you've got feedback on these, whatever. We'll highlight the 3 or 4 that have edits, and then we might want to make a notation of a chart, which is the feedback you receive was that these can be brought back as previously proposed, and these are the ones that have edits.
So when you say new business, you mean for?
Or second reading, whatever.
Second reading, okay.
There's a yes.
But under new business so that you could discuss them as opposed to consent where you would just.
Exactly. Okay, yay! All right, now let's go to the 7,000s. I think this will go a lot faster, actually. Yes.
Point of, I guess, notification order.
Yeah.
Do we have a, do we
Report by
agree
allotment says we should be ending by 10:30.
by 10:30, yeah?
Okay, we got 5 minutes.
Well, I think there's a caveat that we can extend the time, right?
And then you can extend once, I believe, and then, so. you
So
have
let's
that
see what's
conversation
left
now.
on our agenda. We've got the 7,000s. We've got the new voting member to the California, that's fast.
No, two.
Purcell, the Tri-Cities Board, personnel report. What would you propose? Can we go an additional 30 minutes? If we're gonna do one extension?
I just want to see how many, I got 3 of them, so, yeah, for 7,000, I have just 3.
3 comments? Perfect. Well, we'll do this time for the 7,000s, and since you have specific comments, we'll just go straight to those.
Okay.
And I think I only had one question on the 7,000. Okay, so is there a consensus that we can go to at the latest 11 o'clock tonight?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's start with 7,000s. Mr. Lopez, what can you share with us the 3D you have concerns
Is
about?
it, maybe it's a regulation, 7140?
7140. It is a policy, 7140, architectural and engineering
All
services.
right, woo-hoo. So, okay, so,
But there's also a regulation 7140.
oh shoot, oh shoot. Okay, okay, 7140,
The policy's at page 12.
yeah, it's page 12. Maybe, where is that?
No edits.
Fair and reasonable. Fair and reasonable on, I guess, last paragraph, board shall pay fair and reasonable amounts warranted to the providers. That's very vague and fair and reasonable. How can we quantify? How can someone quantify fair and reasonable? That's the question I have.
And I'm trying to find the language here real quick.
Well, Pete,
It's page 12.
Page 12, last paragraph, and then second to last sentence. The board shall pay fair reasonable amounts warranted.
You know, it's interesting, it's almost an unnecessary sentence. Because the next sentence gives you discretion to say the board need not select the lowest responsible bidder.
Right. I recommend we strike it, because
It has, anytime the word reasonable is used in a legal phrase, it's gray area.
yeah.
Because reasonable is in the eye of the beholder.
so we're trying to avoid.
But I understand the intent. I understand the intent, make it reasonable. Yeah.
And
But
we all know
it's
as a
gray
board,
area.
we're gonna have whatever factors we all wanna consider for approval. Okay, I'm okay with deleting that sentence.
Me too.
The board shall pay fair and reasonable amounts warranted by the provider's qualifications and competence. That doesn't mean we're gonna pay unfair or unreasonable, but
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying is, and ultimately, we get to determine what we pay.
Yes.
Okay, that's the consensus of the board. Let's make sure CSBA doesn't get upset with us.
Or maybe they'll thank us.
7211, Madam President.
72. I only have one. Oh, let me see, facilities for.
Developer fees?
There we go, developer fees. Okay, the recommendation for Mr. Rodriguez is to remove this policy from approval.
Part of the thought process on this one, again, optional policy, we do follow this particular procedure for the establishment of developer fees. Didn't feel like it was necessary, it's governed by existing law, government code. But again, happy to adopt it if it's preferred to add to the manual.
Okay, if I may?
Yes, please,
What's-
Mr. Lopez.
Okay, so we want to remove it, yet we already do it, but where?
We currently don't have it though.
We don't have it.
We don't have a policy on developer fees. But we follow this practice. So-
But it's not on paper.
Okay.
Okay.
I think based on that,
I'm confused.
you want,
Yeah,
based on
I
that
wanna-
representation, let's keep the policy.
I said let's keep it.
The board would prefer
So,
to,
we're gonna add this.
to,
Yeah, let's keep it.
Ms. Cachola?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And then 7310 for me, the last one.
I'm just gonna confirm, you have a few others. I think Mr. Tamero likes 7212, that the recommendation is to remove. If we're not calling attention to it, that means that we're agreeing with the recommendation. So, I'm sorry, the next one, Mr. 7310.
7310 is on the naming of facilities. Again, the note on here is keep with your union. What we recommend is this policy has been addressed by this board within the last year. We kind of stopped on that process as I recall. So my recommendation would be that this is another one for the board to consider. We can adopt this existing procedure, but I don't know that it meets the board's priorities for the naming of facility.
So this was the one that I was going to suggest pulling, because there was a subcommittee of Mr. Mendez and I that were supposed to revisit it, because the one that we did prepare turned out to be a little bit clunkier than we thought. And what I would request is that we have another subcommittee look at it and bring it back. But I don't think we need to bring it back to like May, and so I don't know if either of you would be interested in being on the subcommittee. I would still like to be on the subcommittee to look at this policy, our current policy, not the CSGA.
Madam President, because I know I discussed it, I made my suggestions and such, I'm kind of vested in the process, so I'd like to be part of the committee as well.
Is that okay?
Okay, that works for me.
All right, so then you and I will reach out and we'll figure something out. So we will pull these model policy from CSPA 7310. And then can we here actually say we're going to create the subcommittee to look at 7310?
We should put that as an agenda.
Agenda for next week? Yep, and then we'll get on.
Okay.
Okay, perfect, okay. Okay, bam, okay. I knew that was gonna take a while. That's why we had to move the other items. Yay. Whew. Well, consider it one of the most important things we do. Okay, so now let's move to item 15.02. Consider approval to remove our district representative from the Tri-Cities Regional Occupation Program and replace with another member. Do you want me to talk about it?
I would just say that because Mr. Jamero has been tasked by the board with investigating and withdrawing from the ROP and to ensure the lack of any concerns regarding perception of conflict of interest, we would be better served replacing him on the ROP board with Mrs. Bozigian. That has been a common practice where the assistant sup or deputy sup of vet services has served in that role, and then that way Kevin can focus on his role as CBO and further analyze.
Motion to
Do we need a
consider
motion?
approval.
Okay,
Second.
motion by Mr. Lopez to remove Mr. Jamero from the Tri-Cities ROP Board of Directors and replace him with Ms. Bizogian. It's seconded by Ms. Conchola. Did I get that right? Is it getting late? Yes. Lily Go. Bozigian, pardon me, after only 3 years. Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries 3-0. 15.03, let me have you cover that.
We were remiss in not taking this to the board back in December. It was a misunderstanding on my part with respect to the process. And so this is in hopes that if there is an opening, that Ms. Baird, who plays a leadership role, can appoint one of you. So that's why we're asking for ratification.
Or two of us.
Or two, yes.
Yes.
All right, so I need a nomination to ratify the nominations of Mr. Lopez and myself, Mr. Rodriguez Moisa, to serve as a voting delegate to the California School Board Association Delegate Assembly.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Conchola, seconded by Mr. Lopez. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 3-0. All right, and now we are on the 15.05, approval of the personnel report.
All right. So tonight we are onboarding 9 additional classified staff members. And also have a retirement, Mr. Artsy, who is our IT user support technician for 23 years and 3 months. If no,
Recommending approval.
and
Committee for the board. I couldn't hear any of that. I'm sorry. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel report?
Second. Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. The motion carries 3-0. All righty, yay, it's getting late. Next item is item 16, future board topics. Is there any feedback for us for future? We have a very busy year. Any other? All right, not for Mr. Lopez tonight?
I had mentioned, I would like to hear an update on our mariachi. And so, and then we talked about possible WUHSD celebration of Women's History Month. And what else? I think that's it for now.
All right, we'll take those into account, and obviously at any time, anyone can email Dr. Oviedo or myself. So, thank you so much. All right, now I would like, obviously, the point of personal privilege to move to adjourn the meeting today in honor of my dear friend Miguel Garcia, Latino civil rights icon, lawyer. Do I get a second?
Absolutely. Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lopez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nothing. Okay. Motion carries 3-0. Super excited about our meeting on Saturday. So get some good rest, everybody. Get some good rest. Thank you. And meeting is adjourned. Wait, I get to use the whole month. Meeting adjourned, 10:38.
Bring the popcorn.
When you think how many policies that you review.
Well, this is why we had to move the other stuff. Can you imagine how boring? They don't even know what we saved them. They don't know what we saved them from.